significant, meeting of minds to discuss, I think, one of the most relevant topics that we have as of now, which is seen as a challenge in a big way in the government sectors as well. First of all, obviously, thank you, CRB, Nandini, Neha, for having me over here. To be a part of this engaging discussion, which has always been very close to my heart in the last 10 years that I have been working on the SDGs in Government of India and then back again in the state. So congratulations and heartfelt thanks to CRB, Center for Responsible Business, who's been one of our most valued partners in this journey towards SDGs while we were working in Niti Aayog, AIM Progress, and obviously Quizrr. For, I think, ensuring that the top shots of the business sector, especially in the supply chain, are all here in one room, at a very critical juncture in India's economic journey, when we are already the 5th largest economy, moving towards the 3rd largest economy, and then aspiring to be a $30 trillion economy by the year 2047, a Viksit Bharat that we call. My concern, ladies and gentlemen, is that the challenge is not just having that fast pace of economic growth, and to sustain it, we will do it very surely. But how do we ensure that this rate of economic growth also holds on and meets the 3 benchmarks of equity, inclusion, and environmental sustainability? And I would really acknowledge the presence of distinguished guests, experts. I think with your collective insights and experience actually working in the ground, this would be very invaluable to the discussions that we will be having in the next in this couple of days. So, ladies and gentlemen, as somebody who's worked in both the state policy levels and in the central national policy level, as including my tenure as the nodal officer for SDGs and Government of India, I've seen the power of ethical partnerships firsthand when it comes to both governance and in businesses. And this topic would be very close to my heart, as I said, largely because of our fundamental commitment towards advancing and promoting the sustainable development goals in India. And this is where I think the global value chains becomes extremely important. We always just look at the government part, the community part. We forget the immense role and the potential that the businesses have in this direction. And this is where the global value chains, it approximately, it engages 17 million people worldwide and accounts for over 60% of the global trade. And behind these numbers that you see are real people, real livelihoods, and the real opportunities to create a very positive and lasting change in our society. Now, okay, bear with me, 15 minutes of keynote address. So let me sprinkle a little bit of, what the global context also looks like. Well, as far as the SDGs are concerned, there is a tremendous challenge. Some numbers here. 17% of our Sustainable Development Goals target are only in progress. 50%, as high as 50% are stagnant, and almost 30 to 33% are not only regressing, but they are severely off track as well. So this is the kind of world that we are living in. Add to it, what is the reason? Look at the annual investment gap, the financial investment gap, to the tune of 4.4 trillion US dollars when it comes to if the developing South has to actually achieve the SDGs. And out of which a substantial section you will know lies in the energy transition, which is almost $2.2 trillion. And if you've been reading about what's happening in the COP29, you will see that the global north is doing peanuts. They have raised their commitment to climate finance from $100 million to $300 million. And the gap we are talking about is 2.2 trillion. So this is where we are. Now, if we talk about poverty, because again, I've been working a lot on multidimensional poverty as well in the course of the last 6-7 years. So 8.5% of the global population lives in absolute poverty. What do we mean by absolute poverty? Less income than $2.15 a day. Now, if we see that in India, this is 14% is basically of the population is multidimensionally poor. We have lifted 135 million people out of poverty in the last 5, 6, 7 years. But still, the deprivations are that high. Globally, geopolitical conflicts, we are all aware of it. And what is the condition of the people? 50% of the global population lives in countries which spend more on debt servicing than on health and education. So this is the kind of, the scenario. Add to it the climate change and the climate shocks, again impacting not only the entire world, but more so for that 50% of the vulnerable population in these debt-ridden countries. The global picture. Now, what is relevant in this global context is that we have to think and work towards reinventing India's position in the global value chains, because I think this is where the entire value addition will come from, and the economic growth will become more inclusive, more equitable and sustainable as well. Now, the topic for the day is obviously the global value chains. Where does India stand? Let me give a little bit of the macro numbers as well. India's GVC related trade as a percentage of gross trade was 40% in 2022, but it is significantly lower than countries that we are always trying to, we are in a position to beat: US, China, South Korea, even Malaysia. So there's a huge potential out there, and that's why all of us are here together. Now, if we see the commodities which predominate the global value trade system, it's basically our electronics, our computers, telecommunication equipment, EV vehicles, for which these have the predominant GVCs across the world. And this accounts for only 10% of India's merchandise trade. So that's where we see the challenges. And what has India been, conventionally doing? We participate in merely 3% of this global value chain supply, and largely through forward linkages, meaning thereby exporting raw materials and intermediate products. So you can see where the gaps are. Now, for India's position to improve as one of the biggest dominant players in the GVC, we have to sit down in terms of rethinking about how to reorientate these. Now, particularly, we see that the country is now a key player in textiles, in agriculture and manufacturing, where our expertise and capacity have grown exponentially, no doubt about it. And the recent shifts that we see in the geopolitics and also after the COVID pandemic, these have prompted companies to diversify their supply chains in a big way, with India emerging as the preferred manufacturing destination. Even Apple has shifted its assembling to India. However, there are challenges here. Building ethical partnerships is fraught with very complex challenges that require thoughtful solutions. Yeah, all of us are sitting here. Businesses, I'm sure you will know that there's a lot of talk in terms of, how does one align the talk about ethics with concrete action? How does one build trust within organizations, and navigating the increasingly complex regulatory environments as well? So I'm sure a lot of talk will happen about the regulatory environments. That's why partners like AIM Progress is here. The regulatory developments both in the Indian sector and in the global sector, especially related to European Union, OECD, these have been raising the bar for supply chain responsibilities. I'm sure your companies are feeling the pinch of this. And for instance, let's talk about the European Union's new sustainability directive, India's National Action Plan for Business and Human Rights. These are continuously raising the bars for transparency, for accountability among the Indian companies. Now, despite this challenge on the SDGs that we are facing, and on this front, I think there are huge amount of opportunities that lie ahead, and this opportunity can be actually leveraged through this synergetic and vibrant partnerships that we are trying to build here. Congratulations to CRB for doing this. So this is one of those moments that Indian businesses also have to take a lead in creating and rethinking about the responsible business practices, and the timing is definitely very opportune. So ethical partnerships often, require significant, they imply measurable economic benefits that extend beyond compliance. According to a report by World Economic Forum, sustainable and ethical sourcing practices can decrease supply chain costs by 9% to 16% and also increase revenues by over 20%. And I think these are compelling numbers to make a clear business case for ethical practices. Also, we have the Indian regulatory system, and the ecosystem is also very quite mature now. We have the SDG framework. We have the national guidelines on responsible business conduct, which we did as well, along with the Ministry of Corporate Affairs. We have the SEBI's, the BRSR framework, which is mandatory for only some companies, but surely, eventually with maturity, it will go down to the remaining listed companies as well. So there is a roadmap existing for transforming our supply chains. And for Indian businesses, I think this is not just, it will not just provide a moral high ground. What it offers is a competitive advantage in the global marketplace. I think that is what finally drives and would be the biggest incentive for Indian companies also to venture in this direction as well. They enhance the voluntary standards, the GVCs, they enhance reputation in an era where brand value is increasingly tied to ethical conduct, build consumer trust in a time where growing consciousness is one of the biggest trends, and also opens up new markets. You have to agree with that. Particularly in regions which require these very stringent ethical standards. I think our largest market lies in the EU zone and in the American zone. So that's where, to become relevant and to stay relevant in that area, this is not a luxury anymore, this is a necessity. And we have tremendous examples of Indian companies, I don't want to name anyone, but who have shown by record that by integrating sustainability into their core operations, it will not just deliver their short-term goals, but lead to long-term success. So looking ahead, how do I sum it up? Definitely, I would like to, ladies and gentlemen, see that there are three critical areas which, to my mind, come across when in course of my deliberations with the business sector, in course of my deliberations with CRB and other partners. First, I think the biggest, the key to it lies in multi-stakeholder partnerships. This actually means going beyond our traditional business relationships and trying to create more meaningful collaborations between the businesses, between the community-based organizations, between supply and supply, the entire, the supply ecosystem, and other businesses as well. Now, this cannot be only about pooling in resources and expertise. They're about creating sustainable ecosystems that will accelerate progress on SDGs and also foster what? Innovation. I think that is the key term and the key phrase that becomes very important, that the innovation part of in recreating and reimagining our global value systems becomes extremely important to create decent work practices and throughout our supply chains. The second point, it is a derivative of the first point, the need to innovate to solve our supply chain challenges. I think this is one of the most important areas. And what better place than to sit in the hub of innovation and artificial intelligence in this city of Bangalore. It's all about reimagining how we can use blockchain, Internet of Things, artificial intelligence to enhance transparency, efficiency, and sustainability in our supply chains. Lastly, obviously the need to go on with continuous improvement, and this can be done by various means. I am just a novice in this, it is you whose expertise lies in this. By adopting proven technologies like Lean or Six Sigma, we can systematically eliminate waste and optimize our processes. And I think the vision for India's supply chain must balance this ambition with practicality. While complete transformation will definitely take time, we can start with thinking of incremental measures, improvements in key areas. For example, that I can think of is better worker safety standards, more transparent securing practices, clearer accountability measures. So we're already seeing that progress is happening with many companies, and several companies, I mean all of you are here, are taking small significant steps. I'm sure some are taking the big ones as well, in improving documentation, in training of staff. So capacity building is one of the most important areas, as Nora pointed out, and updating your supplier codes and so on. All this incremental change, when implemented consistently over the next 6-7 months, which is the period for your capacity building program,
will definitely yield a lot of meaningful impact. And I think there's nothing more than for me to emphasize that I will just hope and pray and urge the three partners here that this doesn't remain simply an academic exercise, but obviously it kind of remolds the business practices which are going to set forth the new era of India's more and more bigger participation in the global value chain and a more ethical and more responsible and sustainable manners. So with that, this is the ambition that I have for all of us over here. And I think I will also appeal to all the partners here, the participants here, to make the use of the 2 days that we have in terms of concrete ways of going a deep dive into not just the rhetoric of it. Yes, the rhetoric is huge. I've read books published by CRB itself, trying to understand how the global value chains work. It's not a monolith. It is so specific for different set of sectors of companies. So there's a lot of detailing which needs to happen, and who better than Nandini, Neha, Sia, the entire team here, along with In Progress and Quizrr, to actually do that deep dive, take the practical experiences, see what are these small but significant steps which can go into reorienting this. With that, thank you once again for making me a part of this. It's absolutely a pleasure to be with you. Thank you.